But we're going into a lot of quarterback talk and potential quarterbacks for the Green Bay Packers. How about we talk a little bit about the Bears quarterbacks? Right now we got Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles. I don't really know how we would describe this duo, but one that's a little bit, I feel, at least for me, a little bit lackluster. We don't really have a very sexy option on the roster right now, but there are some decent options in free agency with Cam Newton and now Andy Dalton, who ended up getting released from the Bengals this morning.
Red Rocket.
Right, yeah, Red Rocket Andy Dalton. He's really going to burst on the scene for us if he were to join. That being said, Ryan Pace has been showing not too much interest in quarterbacks. Do you think that the Bears should add one of these free agent quarterbacks, especially when you look at the Jameis Winston deal, which I think was like, $1 million?
I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm going to give it to you straight right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that if Andy Dalton were to be the quarterback of this team, that offense is going to be fuego. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I'm with Pat McAfee. Like, every now and then I watch like the Pat McAfee show, and he's really high. Amazing. He's always super high.
Amazing show.
Dalton, Yeah, amazing show. Get a lot of inspiration from him. I honestly just love the way they bounce around. It's just really free and loose. Gives it inspiration, for our podcast too.
Yeah.
But I think that Andy Dalton, I think that he still has that accuracy. When you put it in the context with just how bad that Bengals organization is, I mean, honestly, you have coaches doing, the roles of scouts, because they only had 2 scouts on the team, and
the owner making picks.
Right, exactly. It's bad. It's bad. It's a poorly run organization, but still, when Andy Dalton was quarterback for that team, he led them to very consistent 9, 10, 11 win seasons. Very consistent. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're the Bears, I mean, that has to look super, super attractive to you. But my feeling is they already have Nick Foles, though. I feel like they're really just, and I don't mind Nick Foles. I've talked a lot of good about him. I think that he will be beneficial for offense. If I could have picked from the two, I'd say give me Andy Dalton. Mm-hmm. But, I think that now that you already have Nick Foles, is there even a place for Andy Dalton? Is this a team with 3 quarterback spots, or is this a team that's really ready to move on from Mitchell Trubisky and be willing to do, 2 veteran quarterbacks like Dalton and Foles? I don't know. That I don't think they're really in that place right now.
Andy Dalton is a extremely interesting prospect as far as the free agent goes. He's someone who has been a consistent starter. With the Bengals, the one thing, he was good enough where the Bengals had him for, I don't even know how many years they had him for, but he's been a consistent starter. You've never looked at Andy Dalton and said, oh no, you know what the real issue with the Bengals is it's their quarterback, Andy Dalton. It's always been like, oh, it's the offensive line, it's the defense sucks. AJ Green keeps getting injured. They drafted John Ross, he sucks. There's just been so much wrong with the organization. And I think you made a great point when you said that the Pat McAfee show is essentially us, but with someone famous on it. That was a great that was a great comparison you had. But yeah, I think that the Bears need to add a quarterback still. That's the thing, is you look at these 2 options. And like this might sound a little fucked up, but I would rather personally have the combination of Andy Dalton and Cam Newton than Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. Like if I had both of them on the roster. It's weird. It's weird to say that these free agent options possibly might be better than the players that we have currently, and it's a really interesting time in the NFL right now because it seems like everyone has players that they're confident in. I could see Andy Dalton, and my guess is he's going to end up landing in New England. And God, he's gonna be a really good fit there with Bill Belichick. Just someone who can distribute the ball, someone who knows how to operate a scheme. And Andy Dalton also would be great for the Bears because our current offensive coordinator was his offensive coordinator last year. So you have that comparison. But the quarterback that I have more interest in is honestly Cam Newton. You can say all you want about Cam. You can say he's washed. You can say he's injured. I don't care. Cam Newton is an ex-MVP. And I get it. We have Mitch, we have Foles, but at the end of the day, I really don't care. You need to do whatever you can to bring him in the building to at least see if he still has that in him. Like, see how he is internally, see if his injury is getting better. And like, honestly, you don't even have to bring him in to compete. If you're worried about his injury, bring him in, redshirt him for a year, and let him compete next year for the quarterback position. If you're worried about his injury, look what the Saints did with Teddy Bridgewater. They brought him in even though they knew he couldn't play. And with Cam Newton, you can probably get away with giving him a deal that's like $5 million with incentives. And you're talking about a player that could potentially be your franchise quarterback. I don't see how that could go wrong. The only valid argument I could possibly see against bringing Cam Newton or Andy Dalton in is saying, oh, we have a short offseason. And, oh, we don't know if we can split snaps between 3 quarterbacks. Okay, if that's the case, bring him in, have the first 2 weeks, split the snaps, and whoever is clearly losing the 3-way quarterback competition, cut them. Okay, I don't care if it's Mitch Trubisky. I don't care if it's Nick Foles, even though we just traded for him. I really do not care. All I care about is that next season or the season after, we have a quarterback option that's at least viable and at least something to excite fans. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like if we had Cam Newton on our roster right now, the people would look at the Bears in a completely different light. And now Cam Newton hasn't been all that consistent throughout his career in the way that Andy Dalton has. But if the Bears had Cam Newton, you would say this is a Super Bowl caliber team if Cam Newton plays as good as we know he can.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I love Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton is one of the most intriguing quarterbacks to ever play, one of the best athletes to ever play in the NFL, without a doubt. I think Cam Newton is one of the best athletes probably still in the NFL, even with his injury status. You know, I do believe in him, but the only reason I haven't been getting excited about him is I just know he's not a player the Bears will sign. Honestly, I just know that the character of an organization, they don't really get flashy players, players that really kind of like show off, showboat. And I don't mind anything about Cam Newton, but I know that the Bears organization does. And I know that's the reason why I haven't been getting hyped up about him. I like Cam Newton. I think he's great. His MVP season, I can't believe people have forgotten about it so quickly. Because in my opinion, what Cam Newton did in that one season was, just about as impressive as, Patrick Mahomes at his peak. Mm-hmm. I mean, with how he ran that offense, he was almost unstoppable. Defenses had no clue how to stop him at all, and he really started, and the Carolina Panthers really kind of created this whole RPO movement too. That Panthers team actually kind of really changed the way football looks a lot. And I think that Cam Newton is a great player. I just haven't gotten hyped about him because in my mind, I just don't see him in a Bears uniform because I just don't think they're an organization to do it.
See, now I understand the Bears have had a long tradition of trying to keep a certain level of class with the organization. Cam Newton notably had some very sexist statements about a female not being able to know the difference between routes and football. He isn't doing himself any justice on that front. He types weird on Instagram. He's got the weird captions and everything. He dresses kind of interesting. I mean, people make fun out of him all the time. That being said, Cam Newton, say what you want. Say he's an asshole. Say he's too flashy or whatever. On this Bears team, I think the Bears can use the type of leader that Cam Newton is. Like, Cam Newton is an amazing leader, and he does kind of showboat a little bit, but no one's ever said that, this like showboating that he has ever gotten in front of his passion for football or his passion for his teammates. No one has ever said that about Cam. Everything from Cam is that he's a great leader. The Bears really need a leader at quarterback right now. That's one of the biggest issues, I think, on this team is that there isn't one very, very leading voice. And like the thing with Cam Newton is no matter where you're at with Cam Newton, you always have hope because that man can take a game over. Like very few quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that, and Cam's a great leader. I think there's a lot of positive things that come from bringing him in an organization. Honestly, I think that, you know, between these two quarterbacks that are still left up, I mean, I think both of them would be a really good fit. You know, I think each for different reasons too. I could
Mm-hmm.
really see Andy Dalton. I could see him being a Bears player. I could really see him excelling in, the offense that already exists,
Mm-hmm.
here in Chicago. And then on the other end, I can see Cam Newton, really throwing a lot more RPO. I think it'd be really interesting, um, to have Montgomery and Cam Newton really kind of the off that RPO. You think about that with Allen Robinson. That's a pretty
Yeah.
crazy kind of setup right there. And then you can bring in Tariq, for different kinds of formations and to really change things up. So I mean, I think there's two different routes that are both very good. I don't anticipate the Bears taking either of the routes, but it's interesting to think about, interesting to dream about. I'd be more than happy if they ended up picking either of these quarterbacks up.
I think a bigger issue with Cam Newton for this Bears organization is the fact that he probably wouldn't really care about helping Mitchell Trubisky. And that's the bigger thing, is that Nick Foles, he is a very team-oriented guy, and I'm sure that he will help Mitchell Trubisky in the quarterback room. He's going to be a really good guy towards him. Cam Newton, I feel like you bring him in and he's instantly the alpha male in the room. Like he's instantly like that guy. I do think that Ryan Pace, his biggest goal or his biggest desire from this quarterback competition isn't to have Nick Foles as the starter, and it is to have Mitchell Trubisky develop into that starter. And also, like, one last thing I want to say on Andy Dalton, he's been a lot more consistent than Nick Foles has in his career. Like, he may not
Yeah,
have
that's very true.
he
That's very true.
he may not have the heights that Nick Foles has, but he's been way more consistent. And that's also a reason where you say, why did you not consider that? And also, one final statement with the quarterbacks is how nice would this team look if Teddy Bridgewater was brought in instead of Nick Foles?
Oh, I think Teddy Bridgewater would have been a better than Foles, to be honest with you. I think Foles was an upgrade from Trubisky, but what is that saying? And we don't know what Nick Foles we're getting. Obviously, when he's had really good spurts on the Eagles, but he's had, his year was cut short with Jacksonville, and when he's been on teams other than the Eagles, he hasn't been very good. So what are we really getting? I think Bridgewater been better too, and I think one of these questions I want to ask you is, what do you think that the Bears? What do you honestly think that the Bears, how they view Trubisky? And what lens do they view Trubisky? Do you think the Bears organization actually still thinks that he has potential? Do you think they're actually really holding out hope? Because I get the feeling that they actually are. I think, we've been very pessimistic about him, and we've said from the jump, ever since they got Foles, that Foles would be the starter. And that's because Foles should be the starter, because I think I've seen what I need to see from Trubisky to know that he's kind of a bust. Or not kind of, he is a bust.
I believe that the Bears view him in the lens that he hasn't been consistent. He's not consistent enough for us to win. However, if it clicks and if we can get someone in here to help him make it click, he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I don't think that's an understatement. I truly believe that if Trubisky all of a sudden randomly just one day wakes up and all of a sudden he knows how to read defenses, and all of a sudden he knows how to properly get through his reads, that he's going to be an amazing quarterback for us and that he could potentially be a franchise quarterback. That being said, nothing to this point has shown that he could do that. And the way that he operates the field with his eyes is still the exact same as when he was a rookie. And that's the bigger issue of this, is that he's just not it mentally, he's just not it mentally. And so
I don't know if he's mentally strong enough, honestly, to
no.
really. I think that he can give you 3 or 4 good games straight, but if a couple things go wrong, it just seems like he crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, that's kind of just seemed like what you get from him. If a defense, gives him the right looks and he's just baffled, then he's kind of just like folds up. You kind of just get really basic, version of what quarterbacking looks like, and not in a good way. It's not like he's really fundamentally sound. It's just you get him staring tunnel vision at one target. The safety knows where he's going the whole time. Teams aren't really afraid of him passing, so they load the box, and that really inhibited the run game. I think that, but I do agree with you that I think the Bears are kind of thinking that one day he's kind of just going to wake up and learn how to play quarterback. Yeah. I honestly think that they have like a little bit of hope that one day he's just gonna learn it. And to me, I think it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
especially when you say it out loud. But,
me too.
So I think that that's honestly what they are believing. I think it's good to touch base with what the organization is actually feeling and what we say, because we're quite disconnected. We talk about our dreamland Bears team that we want, but this is what's actually happening. And I think that's interesting to touch base like that.
Now, here's a bigger thing is that the Bears know that if Cam Newton comes in, the already mentally weak Mitchell Trubisky is going to get even more mentally weak, right? Cam Newton, he's not going to feel very confident when Cam Newton comes in with the opportunity of taking his job. Now, that's a big thing. With Nick Foles, you can sell to him that he can compete, and Nick Foles will help him compete, which is good. But that being said, I understand the argument for why Cam Newton should not be the quarterback this year. He doesn't know the system. He hasn't been in a system like ours. All the systems that he has learned has been relatively simple. He's a little bit inconsistent when it comes to pass. Or actually, that's an understatement. He is inconsistent when it comes to passing the ball in a similar light the way Mitchell Trubisky is. That being said, mentally, he's far and beyond what Mitchell Trubisky has been. But there is no argument that you could possibly persuade me on that says that the Bears shouldn't bring in Cam Newton as a future starter.
I'm not going to try to persuade you otherwise, because I'd hope that they would do so.
So
so I won't argue against you.
If you had it your way, Reese, who would be, and I think I already know the answer to this, who would be the quarterback next year for the Chicago Bears?
I think for me, it would personally be Andy Dalton, and I do like Cam Newton more as a player, 100%. Like, I think Cam Newton has honestly been one of my favorite players in the league for a while. So it's interesting that I pick him over. I do think that Cam Newton would be an upgrade, definitely on what the Bears have right now. I think that the Bears would be forced a little bit, and I think it would be not because Cam Newton's dragging them down, but just because Cam Newton has an obvious optimal way of playing to utilize and get what's best out of him, that the Bears would kind of have to shift what they do a little bit, So I think that's a reason why they wouldn't actually bring him in. I think Andy Dalton is a little bit more of like your plug-and-play solution, but I think he has really good upside. I think Andy Dalton is honestly the level of quarterback play that the Bears need to actually contend, especially for a Super Bowl. I think that if you get Andy Dalton, I think he brings in a level of consistency that is good enough, especially with the defense that they're going to be bringing in next year, where the Bears' defense isn't being on the field too much. They have really good time of possession. They're scoring, and the other teams aren't scoring a lot because that Bears defense is staying fresh. Mm-hmm. So I think it would have a really dominant team, actually. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that next year, Andy Dalton would probably be the best opportunity. Really, the only way you could persuade me into saying it's Nick Foles is the fact that Nick Foles has operated in similar offenses to Matt Nagy. But even so, I mean, I think that the true level of consistency that you get out of Dalton would exceed that. And we can hope that we do get that consistency out of Nick Foles. I really hope that we do. And, Nick Foles has been in the NFL for a long time, but he hasn't gotten that many options to play quarterback with a team that's as good as the Chicago Bears team. And the one time he really did, he played amazing. That being said, with everything, the Bears absolutely at least need to extend a qualifying offer on Cam Newton to potentially be a future starter for this team. Give him a year to rest. Get him a year to learn Nagy's system on his own and potentially be our starter for the long-term future. I honestly don't think that Cam Newton would be the best option for the Bears next year. And the one argument that I could possibly see for the reason why we don't get Cam Newton is solely that if Foles is bad, if Trubisky is bad, we're just going to draft a quarterback. That being said, you don't know how the draft is going to turn out next year, and right now you know for a fact that Cam Newton is sitting at home on the couch. Ex-MVP. Sitting at home on the couch, and you're doing nothing. You have your hands off of it. And now, the one thing that could potentially make all this invalid is that the Bears already have extended a qualifying offer to Cam Newton. But Cam Newton's waiting to see what all of his options are. He knows it's a crowded quarterback room in Chicago, and he just doesn't really know where he wants to be yet.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I would definitely smile if I saw a notification, that the Bears were pursuing Cam Newton. I think that would be something really positive for him. It would be something that I think that shows me that the culture has really changed in Hallis Hall. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that would almost be the biggest takeaway from it. But I think it's going to be something really interesting to watch. I mean, this quarterback position for the Bears is storied for just how, Sid Luckman, Jay Cutler, there's all these. Those are the two names that pop out at the top of the record books. But it's notoriously bad. And they have handled it poorly. There's never any development of the quarterback position that actually occurs. Trubisky was obviously a failed project. So, whenever there's chances for new franchise quarterbacks, it's always interesting, especially with all the media attention the quarterbacks bring in.